represents York, has said we don't want him to be Duke of York either. That is a taint on our city. One or two other voices in York are saying the same thing. So that's absolutely in the gift of the Queen. He was made the Duke of York on the day of his wedding. And there's been no word from the palace that they're considering stripping him of that as well, but the pressure will continue.
Jenny Bond. French authorities say a man in his 20s has died after being pulled from the water in the English Channel. 32 people in total were rescued near Calais, all suffering from hypothermia after their boat got into difficulties. More people made the journey through freezing waters into the UK yesterday than in the whole of January last year. The government is to hold a review into how a Chinese agent was able to get so close to senior British politicians. It comes after MI5 warned yesterday the agent had been interfering in UK politics. Downing Street has said it's deeply concerning. China has denied the allegations, saying it has no need to buy influence in any foreign parliament. Security Minister Damien Hinds told GB News MI5 issued the alert to put a stop to the spies' activities.
The system at work, and these notices are one tool that the security service has at its disposal. But what we've seen yesterday is a disruption of this activity. I'm afraid that we're likely to see more of these in the future.
A cyber attack has left a number of Ukrainian government websites temporarily unavailable. The websites of the country's cabinet, 7 ministries, the Treasury and the National Emergency Service were among those that were temporarily down today. The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry says it's too soon to tell who's behind the attack, but there is a long record of Russian cyber assaults against Ukraine. The Six Nations rugby competition will now go ahead as planned as outdoor COVID restrictions are eased in Wales following a rapid decline in COVID cases there. Wales's First Minister set out his roadmap to lifting restrictions if the downward trend continues. GB News Wales correspondent Lily Hewitson has the details.
This is a 4-stage plan which sees nightclubs reopen and crowds welcome back to sporting events here in Wales. Now, this starts tomorrow with the number of people who can attend an outdoor event rising from just 50 to 500. From the 21st of January, sports events will be able to welcome back crowds, and on the 28th, nightclubs will be able to reopen.
Lily Hewitson speaking there. That's it from me. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now let's get more from Nana Akua.
If you just join me, it's just coming up to 7 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on digital TV and on your radio. Now, as I sat in my office the other day, getting myself ready for Prime Minister's questions, I tweeted, just poured myself a glass of red, some crackers and cheese, all ready for PMQs. It's gonna be a good one. Now, I was working. I brought my own food and booze, and I certainly wasn't having a party. You know what? I'm not going to castigate Boris for his staff sitting socially distanced in the garden of their office on what was one of the hottest days of the year, whether it's classified as a party or not. Firstly, this was actually around about 2 years ago, at the very start of his premiership and at the very start of the pandemic, when it was clear by his actions, like shaking hands with people with COVID and not closing borders quickly enough, that he wasn't taking the thing seriously at all. His behaviour obviously changed a little bit after he caught it and almost died. Secondly, if you cut the head off, another head will simply appear. Nothing will change. All you've done is waste time and distracted the government from the actual business of government. These parties, in particular these latest ones around the time of Prince Philip's funeral, weren't organised by Boris, so it would appear. It seems that those working at Downing Street were those behind it. And they may well have been working there for years under successive governments. To be honest, this looks to me like death by a million cuts, and I wonder who would be administering the blows. Are you seriously saying that no one knew about all this? Of course they did. They just kept it quiet. And thirdly, despite people saying the rules were clear enough at the time, I remember the resounding issue was that the rules were too complicated, didn't make sense, and were in many instances contradictory. In the meantime, as we discuss whether Boris should or shouldn't resign, we face sky-high fuel and energy prices, national insurance and tax rises in April, people living in unsafe buildings due to dodgy cladding and fire safety, etc., inflation spiralling out of control. Need I go on? No. I would like to focus the government on those things. I'm afraid if we allowed the distraction of these work gatherings, we let them off the hook. Yes, people did make sacrifices and didn't see loved ones, and people died alone. My heart goes out to those people. I mean, it was horrendous. But in many instances, it was the right thing to do. I don't agree with politicians doing their own thing and not following their own rules, but it's nothing new. And it could be argued, whether you like it or not, this was a place of work, and that was a work gathering. Were those illegal? To be honest, the rules were so ambiguous in many respects, I haven't got a clue anymore. So rather than wasting my energy on this distraction that looks like a vendetta from someone like, say, maybe Dominic Cummings, I would rather await the findings of the inquiry, but get on with focusing the politicians on running the country. And what about the Labour Party? Well, they can't go without scrutiny. If my memory serves me correctly, didn't Barry Gardiner, Labour MP, get scrutinised for breaking the rules by attending a Black Lives Matter protest? He was that arrogant, he even tweeted about it. That's how much regard he had for the rules. The Shadow Foreign Secretary, Lisa Nandy, said what Barry Gardiner did was dangerous and he should acknowledge his mistake. He apologised, but why is no one scrutinising them? In fact, some of you calling for Boris's resignation are no better, and even went to the Black Lives Matter illegal protests yourselves. Way more than 100 people there. And what about the people who went to the beaches, knowing full well how dangerous it was to mix in this way, travelling further than the agreed distance, destroying beauty spots in their wake? People didn't wear masks and break the rules daily. I know, because I would tell them off. And whilst we're at it, I'd like to find out exactly what the Labour Party stand for and how they plan to run the country, and in particular the economy. They've managed to evade answering this thus far. If we depose of Boris, they have a fighting chance. So what are we getting? We, the British public, have to also take some responsibility. I mean, this virus was spread by human behaviour. Look at places like China and Japan, who stoically followed the lockdown rules. Their death rates, if they're to be believed, were considerably lower. If you take the emotion out of this, human behaviour is the reason why this virus spread the way it did. We had one of the highest death rates across the world. Our behaviour as a society was absolutely part of the problem. Those in government castigating Boris have their eye on power. And yes, the parties are unacceptable. But who are the civil servants organising these gatherings? This is a rot from within. Rather than blaming Boris, how about we find out who is actually behind them? Boris took a gamble with the vaccines and PPE, protected jobs and the economy. I'm not defending him, but I'm afraid I don't believe any of the others would have done a better job. And if you'd left things to Keir Starmer and his clan, we'd still be in lockdown. And what about Brexit? I think this tweet from Lord Adonis sums it up. If Boris goes, Brexit goes. So before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. Each Friday at 5, we'll put the spotlight on a particular guest or subject matter in my feature Friday Focus. Now, this week, we'll discuss the decision by the government to suspend the rollout of smart motorways until at least 2025. I'll be joined by a woman whose partner died on the motorway and a police and crime commissioner who's been calling for smart motorway reform in Yorkshire. The Great British Debate this hour. Prince Andrew has been stripped of his royal patronages and military titles. He's facing a US civil action over sexual assault allegations, claims he strongly denies. And it's yet another controversial story at the heart of the family following Harry and Meghan's tell-all interview last year. So I'm asking, is the monarchy still an institution to be proud of? This week, a man in the US became the first person in the world to get a heart transplant from a genetically modified pig. David Bennett is thought to be doing well after the 7-hour procedure. But how big a breakthrough is this? I'll find out from a professor of stem cell biology. And as ever, tell me what you think on everything we're discussing by emailing gbnews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. Right, so let's get started. Welcome to my superstar panel, Deputy Leader of the Reclaim Party, Martin Daubney, and former Conservative advisor, Claire Pearsall. Right, so firstly, I want to talk about this because I'm wondering what your thoughts are. I'm going to come straight to you, Claire, Conservative, the former Conservative advisor. You're seeing party after party unfold. I mean, my take on it is clearly, as you heard, I think who's behind it. The civil servants obviously have a lot to answer for. But what do you think?
Well, I think the one person that it does have to come to rest on is the Prime Minister. He is leading the country. He is the man at the top. He has to take responsibility for this. You cannot throw junior people under a bus to save your own skin.
But do you think that, I mean, look, yes, they're junior people, but if they were behind the parties, doing behind his back or whatever, surely there has to be some accountability from them.
Oh, absolutely, there does. And I think this last story that we've heard about the suitcase of booze being bought up from a co-op on the Strand and wheeled into number 10. Yeah, those people knew exactly what they were doing. They were hiding what they had. They went in through a staff entrance. So, yeah, they absolutely are to blame. But you have to look at where does it stop? Where has the authority come from? And if somebody has been allowing these parties to happen for some time, this is not just one or two. I think we're up to sort of 8 or 9 at the moment. That's quite substantial rule breaking.
Well, it is, but if we think about it, and you said 8 or 9 and substantial rule breaking, this sounds like something that probably happened before Boris as well. So these people who have been organising these parties, sounds to me like they maybe have worked for the civil service for many years as Downing Street staff and have maybe been doing this with successive governments. But what's your take on it, Martin?
Well, I would say that may be the case, but that wasn't during a pandemic or during lockdown. So I think it's quite different. I think this is dire times for Boris. I appreciate your spirited, charitable defence. I mean, you know, charity hasn't stopped at Christmas.
Listen, I'm not defending him, but I'm looking at it. If I take out the emotion of it and I look at the facts, which is parties organised, we may well have known or not known about it. These people have been in this job for some time. They will know how to circumnavigate things. Yes, it's in the middle of a pandemic, but they clearly didn't care. Why should the whole thing rest on Boris?
Well, because he's the Prime Minister. And if power doesn't stop with the Prime Minister, then what's the point of having a Prime Minister? Now, you can continue to throw people under the bus and blame them. We saw that with Allegra Stratton. Now, she was just chucked out, crying, and just really had her life decimated. And I think Boris should have taken the bullet then. He didn't. And I think he has to take it now. The really heartbreaking thing that's really prescient now is the images of the Queen at her funeral and this party on the evening before. Suitcases of booze being ferried in, it just strikes home the sheer inhumanity and the absolute contempt.
But was he even there at Downing Street?
I don't think it matters because it's on Downing Street premises.
Yeah, but I want to know the facts. If he's not there, and I'm not saying, listen, I don't know if you've got kids, but if you, and how old they are, but I did the thing where my parents went off to Africa, we'll be back in about 6 weeks. OK, bye, Mummy, bye, Dad, don't have a party. I won't have a party. I had a party. You know, I don't even know whether they know. Do you know I had a party? Mum and Dad, I did have a party.
Yeah.
But you see what I mean? What I'm saying is the parents left the building, these people took over it, and actually, that could have happened with or without a pandemic, and probably was happening even before Boris took charge of 10 Downing Street.
Again, your charity is admirable.
It's not charity.
But I do think it is, because you're comparing a house party to a 10 Downing Street party during a pandemic and on the eve of Prince Philip's funeral. The optics are horrendous.
Oh, they are. I'm not.
And they're unforgivable. And not only that, but that image of the Queen, I think, will resonate with so many people who weren't allowed to attend their funerals of their loved ones. And I think in this instance, I think Boris is really, really in trouble. You know better than I about this.
Well, I do think he's in trouble, and I do agree with you. A house party, OK, we've all been there, we've all been teenagers, but this is a little bit different. When you were in number 10, you have been party to all of the restrictions and all of the briefings and all of the information, probably more so than we all were, then you should have known better. Now, you say civil servants and they could have been there for some time. Well, not necessarily. There is always a change round of staff whenever a Prime Minister comes in. They will always have their advisors who come in with this administration. So quite likely they hadn't been there for some time. So I think to put all the blame on civil servants is a little
But they're
unfair.
the ones, listen, if they organise the party, and I'm all for, yes, OK, Boris, you should have been aware of this if you could have been, if it was possible. I'm just going from an objective perspective, and I'm saying, look, if he has no idea that this is going on, and these people have gone out of their way to try and make sure that he never finds out, or that they're doing something completely behind his back, they have this party. It is wrong for them to do that, absolutely. Look, I'm not defending them, but I think they should be called to account as well. I don't see why it should, oh, yes,
No, I agree.
Boris should rest on his sword. You're fine, but what about these people?
I agree with that. I mean,
broken the
they should all get the chop, surely.
They should. I mean, I don't disagree with that point whatsoever. That if you were in charge of organising a party, getting the DJ or putting the music together, getting the suitcase of booze, you are absolutely as culpable. However, the precedent has been set from the top. So you can't just make movements down the staff at lower levels. You do have to look at who are the elected representatives in all of this, and they are the ones who are accountable to the country.
Well, what about then? OK, so you now depose Boris, you get rid of him. We've now got we've got a headless chicken running the country, and the head that is put on, none of us even know. What then? Because we're heading into another territory now, and does the country really need that level of instability?
It's absolutely staggering, you know. If you look back to January 2020, in the aftermath of the Brexit general election, friends of mine, Tory MPs, were saying the next Labour leader hasn't even been born yet. They were that confident of a generation of Conservative power, and here we are. You know, literally now, it's just amazing, this act of self-harm that Boris Johnson has inflicted upon the Conservative government. I do agree that Keir Starmer in charge would be no better. I mean, here's a guy that wants to impose even harder lockdowns, sooner lockdowns, longer lockdowns, more of the same, while having boozy Labour lockdown booze-ups as well.
Exactly.
So he's hardly like the kind of knight in shining armour. He's nothing but the Fraser.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And then, of course, you had the Barry Gardner. Of course, he was on a Black Lives Matter protest march. It was totally... We weren't supposed to be gathering in that way. The protest was deemed as, breaking the rules. And he was doing it and tweeting about it. I mean, then there will be others who went on these protests too. And I'm just thinking, well, let he who was without sin cast the first stone. And right now there seems a lot of guilty people here.
I agree with that. I mean, there was always this sense that COVID only infects people on anti-lockdown marches. But it won't affect people on Black Lives Matter. It's a selective virus, depending on your politics.
If you go on the beach wearing a Black Lives Matter T-shirt, you'd be OK.
You're safe.
You're safe. But if you go on the beach when you're not supposed to go on the beach, you're not doing a protest of any description, you're in trouble. See, so that's what I'm saying. We have to, as a society, look at ourselves as well. Before we stand there castigating someone, have a look at yourself and see what kind of thing you did during lockdown. If you've just joined me, hello, welcome on board. It's coming up to 22 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV and on digital radio. Still to come. It's time for the Great British Debate this hour. Prince Andrew has been stripped of his royal patronages and military titles. He's facing a US civil action over sexual assault allegations, claims that he strongly denies. It's yet another controversial story at the heart of the family following Harry and Meghan's departure. So the tell-all interviews, remember that last year with Oprah? Well, the poor Queen, I feel very sorry for her. So I'm asking you, is the monarchy still an institution to be proud of? Get in touch now. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk. Tell us what you think. You can also get in touch via Twitter @GBNews. There's a poll up right now asking that very question, so cast your vote. But first, let's get another update with your weather.
Hello again. After the cold and foggy start in places, it's turned into a fine winter's day once again. Dry for most, sunny spells, especially for England and Wales, cloudier for Scotland and Northern Ireland, and we'll see further fog forming overnight, particularly close to where this H is, the centre of the high pressure. Weather fronts, though, meanwhile, are still bringing thicker cloud to parts of Scotland especially, but also Northern Ireland and parts of northern England. Some drizzly outbreaks of rain in the far north and northwest. Otherwise, the country is dry overnight. Clear spells in the south will lead to widespread mist and fog, as well as low cloud. The worst of the visibility expected around central and eastern England through the Midlands, and as far north as, say, parts of North Yorkshire. So a grey and gloomy start to the day, some poor visibility out there. Take care on the roads if you are out and about first thing, especially central and eastern England. There'll be some sunshine, North Wales into northwest England, as well as parts of northeast Scotland. Otherwise, a good deal of cloud remains into the afternoon. We may even keep a few stubborn fog patches, and where that happens, it will stay on the cold side for parts of eastern England in particular. A few drizzly showers in the west, but some more persistent rain coming along into the far northwest as we end Saturday. This is a weather front, and although the rain on it will tend to ease away as it moves south across the country on Sunday night, as you can see, it does open the door to clearer skies, and so actually temperatures falling away in the north of Scotland, clearer spells as we start off Sunday. A bit more of a breeze elsewhere, perhaps less foggy as we begin Sunday across England and Wales. Still a lot of cloud cover, but as this front comes south, it acts as a sweeping brush. It clears away the cloud, and so skies readily brightening across Scotland, Northern Ireland, and then later across parts of northern England. Some decent sunshine coming through, although it will be blustery and on the cold side here with showers in the far north.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
It's just gone 26 after 4. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. Right, so it's time for our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is the monarchy still an institution to be proud of? Prince Andrew has been stripped of his royal patronages and his military titles, and he's now facing civil action from Virginia Giuffre over sexual assault allegations, claims which he strongly denies. But that's not the only negative headline that the royal family have had to deal with over the last few years. The infighting from Harry and Meghan leaving their royal duties has also cast a dark cloud over the Windsors. So should we still be proud of the institution, which is such a big part of our national identity? I'm joined by royal correspondent for The Sun and author Charles Ray. So, welcome, Charles. Good to see you. So, on Prince Andrew then, being stripped of his titles, was this a decision that the Queen had little choice but to make?
No, I don't think she had much of a choice. I mean, Prince Charles and Prince William had been urging her to do something. They need to move away from the Andrew problem, and I think this was the right thing to do. And let's make no mistake about it. When that 41 words came out from the Queen, where it looked as if Andrew was handing back these patronages and these military affiliations, he wasn't. He didn't hand them back. He was told to give them back in no uncertain terms. He was told, kicking and screaming, ordered to the Windsor Palace yesterday at 11:30, 90 minutes, and everything was taken away, including the HRH title.
Well, I mean, so for Prince Andrew, what does that actually mean to him then? Because even if you take the HRH, he's still a member of the royal family. He probably will still be privileged in a sense. It doesn't really mean anything. I mean,
well, it does. It signifies that the royal family themselves are very upset with the way things are going. I mean, he has plunged them into, I wouldn't say crisis is not the right word, but it could affect the royal family. There would be a stain on the royal family if he is found that these charges against him, which he strenuously denies, are found against him. And it's only right that the title goes away. He's still Duke of York, a title that was given to him on his marriage to the Duchess of York, Fergie. Now that's still there. And bizarrely to me at the moment, he's still a member of the Order of St. George, which is the oldest order of chivalry in this country. And the only way that people have been got rid of, but that's because they took arms up against the monarch in previous years. So I await to see what happens, and I think the Queen will await to see what happens with this court case to see if anything else is likely to be taken away from Andrew. He hasn't got very much left.
Yeah, it's not looking good for him at all. But if we move away from him then, and we look at Harry and Meghan now, how much damage have they done to the monarchy? Because I feel so sorry for the Queen here. She just seems to be just up against it all the time.
You talk about damage to the monarchy. Nana, the monarchy has faced controversies and damage for thousands of years. Hundreds of things have happened to our monarchy, and it's stayed there. It is a fantastic institution, and I think the monarchy will survive this. It'll survive Harry and Meghan. It'll survive Prince Andrew, and it will survive the next controversy that's probably just around the corner.
Yeah, well, I mean, I quite like the royal family. I love the Queen. I think Kate is fabulous. Well, Kate Middleton, I think she's brilliant. I quite like William. It's Charles and Camilla I'm slightly struggling with, but in terms of
I think. Sorry, Nana, to interrupt, but that's a view that is quite prevalent in the country. You know, there is a big move. They want to sort of bypass Charles and Camilla and give it straight to William and Catherine. That's not going to happen. We will have King Charles and Queen Camilla, because she can be nothing else, and no matter for how long, and we'll have to wait and see just how good a king and queen they make. But the future of the monarchy looks as if it's in safe hands. There's William and Catherine still to come.
Yeah, well, that's if people are prepared to wait that long. Thank you so much, Charles. It's really good to talk to you. That's Charles Ray. He's a former royal correspondent for The Sun and an author. Right, let's have a quick look at what you've been saying. I'm asking, is the monarchy still an institution to be proud of? Ellie says, yes, at the moment, the Queen is magnificent. Charles may only have a short time as king. Then it's down to William. If he carries on being so woke, then support of them will be more divided. Maureen says, if one person is bad, it doesn't mean the whole system have problems. Scott says, after the Queen, the monarchy should go. They don't care about anyone but themselves. Wow. Well, keep those thoughts coming. I'd love to hear your view on this. Get in touch at GB News or tweet us. If you've just tuned in, I'm Nana Akua. This is, of course, GB News on TV and digital radio. After the break, we'll continue the Great British Debate. You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, Deputy Leader of the Reclaim Party, Martin Daubeny, and former Conservative advisor, Claire Purcell. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 16:31 and I'm Polly Middlehurst in the GB newsroom. The former Director General of the government's COVID task force, Kate Josephs, has apologised over leaving drinks she held in the Cabinet Office in December 2020. It comes after it emerged two parties were held the day before the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral in May. Downing Street apologised, saying it was deeply regrettable that they took place at a time of national mourning. Restrictions at the time meant the Queen had to sit alone for her husband's funeral the following day. An Australian court has ordered Novak Djokovic to be detained from 8 a.m. local time tomorrow. He will, however, be allowed to attend his lawyer's offices to prepare his case. It follows a government decision to revoke his visa for a second time, saying it was in the public interest. And Virginia Giuffre has welcomed a US judge's decision to allow her civil sex abuse case against the Duke of York to go ahead. Miss Giuffre says she wants to expose the truth. Prince Andrew denies all of the allegations against him. It comes as the Duke was stripped of his royal patronages and military titles yesterday. Harry Dunn's alleged killer, Anne Sokoulas, will no longer face a court hearing on Tuesday due to ongoing discussions with the Crown Prosecution Service. The US citizen is accused of causing the death by dangerous driving of the boy following a fatal crash in August 2019. She was granted diplomatic immunity by the US government following the collision and was able to leave the UK. The Six Nations rugby tournament will now go ahead as planned as outdoor COVID restrictions are eased in Wales following a rapid decline in COVID cases there. From tomorrow, the number of people allowed at outdoor events will rise from 50 to 500, and from the 21st of this month, limits will be removed completely. COVID passes, however, will still be required at larger events. On TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. This is GB News. Now more from Nana Akua.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farrar, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Good afternoon, welcome on board. It's just coming up to 37 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV and on digital radio. Back to our Great British debate this hour. I'm asking, is the monarchy still an institution to be proud of? Prince Andrew has been stripped of his royal patronages and military titles. He's now facing civil action from Virginia Giuffre over sexual assault allegations, which he strongly denies these claims. Let's get my panel's take. I'm with Deputy Leader of the Reclaim Party, Martin Daubeny, and former Conservative advisor, Claire Purcell. So, Martin, we'll start with you. The royal family, should we still be proud of them? And what's your take on all of this?
I think we should be proud of the Queen, I think, who is the last of the great monarchs. She's led from the front this week. You know, she said good riddance to bad rubbish with Andrew. If only the Prime Minister would do the same with these morons that organise the 10 Downing Street parties. And I think that is a really positive thing. But as for the succession, Prince Charles is a whinging, liberal, green activist. He's Greta Thunberg in a tweed suit. Right, we don't need to know his politics. I think the rest of them are just as bad. They're just whinging wokists who travel by private jets around the world and lecture us about carbon footprint.
Are you talking about Harry and Meghan specifically? Because Kate and William are quite good. They take normal jets like everybody else. I've seen them do it.
But they also go on about things like Black Lives Matter. Now, that's fine. But what I'm saying is it's now become a political establishment.
Wasn't it the Queen that supported it, though? Didn't she say that she was...
How do you think the Queen voted for Brexit? We'll never know.
Well, she might have... I don't know what she would have voted for. I mean, we will never know.
Precisely. We don't know. And I think that's the point. No. They have now become a politically involved, droning bunch of entitled windbags. That's what I think they've become.
I don't think it's all of them, though. I don't think it's all of them. No, I mean, I think, you know, the Queen is magnificent and we love the Queen. Kate and William, actually quite happy with that. And Princess Anne, who does some remarkable charitable work and is really, really hard-working.
Yeah, but they're old school, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
But I mean, I hate to agree with you again, but I will, that we don't need to understand what their politics are. We don't need them to be like that, because constitutionally they are meant to be free of politics. That is the whole point, which is why I wouldn't suggest that we ever got rid of the monarchy, because we need that with the Queen, or indeed the King to come being the head of state. We need to have that happen, otherwise a constitutional crisis does beckon where we become a country which requires a president. And therefore we'll have political allegiances, and we only have to look at the mess we're currently in to think, we don't need any more of this. So I fully back that, and I somehow also think that it makes everybody look at the royal family and go, actually, they're not so different from everybody else. Their family has problems, they have their delinquent children.
Yeah, but we don't want to look at that, though. We don't want to see them like that.
Well, I think some people do.
I don't want to see them like that. I quite like to see them on a coin, or just, you know, it's like a little image somewhere, or in a common room somewhere. You know, I like to see that. I don't want to hear...
So you just want to see the pictures?
I like to see the pictures. I want to be there at the royal weddings, clapping away, and I don't know what I'm looking at, or why I'm looking at it, or why it's even important to me.
Do you think they would be better if they were occupied in doing jobs which required them to actually work hard? Because I sometimes think there's a little bit of boredom.
No, but I don't kind of... I mean, I think travelling is actually quite tiring. I mean, even though you might not think it, going in a private jet and everything... You've got to get your stuff together, you've got to get in the plane, you've got to go there, then you've got to say hello to everybody, you've got to smile to everybody. You can't look angry or in a bad mood. You can't just go, oh, grr, and, you know, you can't do any of those things. So you have to be so focused on this. This is why Harry and Meghan failed completely and miserably. But that's why they did, because Meghan couldn't handle that, even though she's an actress. Second rate. But anyway, I digress. It's not. I don't dislike the woman at all. But anyway, where was I? I lose myself when I get involved in that. But no, so what I'm thinking is that the Queen is such a role model. She's so up there. She's almost impossible for them to even replicate in any other form. We want to hang on to her as long as possible, because we know, and they know, that once Charles and Camilla get on the throne, and lots of people still haven't fully forgiven Charles for the way he treated Diana. And obviously, we know what happened to Diana, and she was loved, and I loved Princess Diana. I watched the weddings. People still haven't quite forgiven him for that, I don't think, or we've forgotten about it. I think he's going to have a problem.
Yeah, I think so. But I just think that there's always been this kind of feeling that Charles is a square peg in a round hole. People they haven't never really warmed to him, and I think it's getting worse. Like I said, he's kind of leading this kind of Air Miles existence and flying to COP26 and telling us to turn off our boilers and telling us that we should be impoverished.
Didn't they? All the world. It was embarrassing.
But that's what they shouldn't be doing. You know, this is that we pay for them. They exist because of us. And so to tell us to sit in the cold and turn off our boilers in the name of global warming, people don't want this finger-wagging nonsense from the monarchy.
Should we write them a list of what we think they should be saying?
Well, I think we should. Let's do that now. I want them to, you know, sort of cut ribbons and unveil plaques and things like that, and come and support community centres, and that would make me very happy indeed.
Yeah, you think, well, this is... well, I'll tell you what, this show's nothing without you and your views. So today I want to introduce one of our great British voices. It's your opportunity to be on the show and tell us what you really think about the topics we're discussing. And for our great British debate this hour, I'm asking, is the monarchy still an institution to be proud of? Let's welcome our first great British voice, Carol Wright, a health and wellness coach from Northamptonshire. Carol, what do you think? You've heard what the panel think. What do you think? Oh, I can't hear her. Can you hear Carol? Oh, we can't hear Carol. Carol, we'll try and get you back up on as our first British voice that we couldn't hear, but it's okay.
I think I agreed with it.
I think I agree with her as well. I think she was moving her mouth in a certain way that may suggest that what she was saying was the right thing to say. But anyway, so let's come back to the panel anyway. Let's carry on chatting, because it was always an interesting topic with the monarchy. So what do you think? So when the Queen sort of gives the legacy of the throne to Charles...
OK.
What do you think? How do you think that'll be received, and what do you think?
I think it'll be received with widespread kind of whatever.
Yeah, I
just don't think people care about Charles. He's not a kind of motivational
And I don't
character.
think he would be there for very long either. I don't think you should be so tough on Camilla, because I do think that she has behaved impeccably since she's been married.
Since she's been the sort of third part in the whole relationship as an extra.
Do you know what? She is superb at doing her job, and I think she needs to be celebrated and just left alone to do that. I mean, she puts up with Prince Charles, so she's got to have something going for her. Let's all be honest. She does a really good job of that and still looks happy. So, but I think with the younger,
I think it's the gin.
The younger generations coming through will look towards the likes of Kate and William. They won't know the history that perhaps we all do.
It's interesting that even though you say that, we still look on the history of the royal family. So I think there's a whole shift in mindset, isn't there, with the younger generation? They're just not interested. Well, let's welcome back our great British voice, Carol Wright, a health and wellness coach from Northamptonshire. Carol, let's hear what we can hear what you think now. What do you think?
I love the British monarchy, and I'm really proud that we have them, heading our country. They do a lot for people. People look up to them. They follow them. They follow their fashion. They follow everything, really. And yes, okay, they're in the public eye. Everybody is. If you're that sort of profession or any profession, people will always expect that there is a public perception that you have to behave or you have to do something in a certain way. So for them, not everyone's squeaky clean. They're human at the end of the day, and I still love them. My mum brought me up to be a royalist, so I absolutely love the British monarchy.
I see. Thank you very much for that, Carol, our great British voice. Carol, lovely to have you on board. Thank you for joining us. That was our first great British voice. She loves the monarchy. Her mum and dad and everybody else in her family, they all love the monarchy.
I think Carol's got a Union Jack bedspread.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think she's full on.
Yeah, I think she's got a corgi ornament sitting on her mantelpiece.
And why not?
Well, absolutely, why not? And do you know what? If it makes people happy and proud to be British, then why shouldn't we celebrate that? And that is the important part of our country.
Do you begrudge paying, obviously, in your taxes for them? Not much, is it?
I personally don't.
No.
Because I think if you look at the basic economics, before the pandemic anyhow, the sheer volume of tourism, they generate all that new money from China coming in. They are, I think, a worthwhile investment in terms of the national balance sheet, undeniably. But I just wish they'd do it with a little bit less of the lecturing. That's all.
Do you think what's going on with Andrew is very, in a sense, quite damaging? Or because Charles was of the impression that actually it's damaging, but they've seen off a lot of things, and this will be just another thing they see off.
No, I do think this one's potentially quite damaging, given it's on the back of a larger problem over in America with the court cases that have already been heard. So, no, I think this one is actually more damaging than he's letting on.
Yeah.
And I think the detail coming out of this is going to be really quite telling and quite worrying for the royal family.
And I do think that this kind of severance of Andrew from the monarchy, directly is a real indicator where this case is going. They wouldn't have done this lightly. No. They would have been with full legal advice and representation. I think this spells grave danger for Andrew. If he's going to face a court not as a member of the royal family but as a private citizen, I think the bellwether looks really bad for him.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. I think that for the titles to be removed and military duties to be taken away from him, this is serious.
Yeah.
And they don't appear to have just been suspended. So it doesn't look like they're suspecting he's going to be innocent at the end of it.
He's on the gangplank, I think.
And unfortunately, of course, with the internet, whereas I suppose if you think years ago we didn't have that, but now we have, and every single thing can be spread around quickly and everyone can hear and see the exact things that have happened. And then there was, when he acted alone, in a sense, without the backing of the royal family, he did that interview with Emily Maitlis, which didn't go well. And
it was dreadful.
It was just a worry. And he thought it went well, because I remember afterwards he said, yes, it went well, and it was
he did.
It didn't go well.
As a former advisor, I looked at that and just had my head in my hands thinking, no, under no circumstances would I ever have allowed that to happen. I can't can't understand why he went there, why he said he couldn't possibly sweat and he'd had a pizza. And, I mean, there were so many things that were wrong with it right from the start, and it was just cringeworthy.
It was a little bit embarrassing. What about the impact of Harry and Meghan? Because as we, you know, when the Queen passes the title on to Prince Charles, who will then become king, of course, we've got the next succession, which will be William. What do you think in terms of Prince Harry and Meghan and the effect that they've had on the royal family?
Again, very, very damaging. And the disrespect that they have brought to the Queen, I wouldn't be able to forgive them if they were in my family. So I think the Queen is, you know, remarkably better character than I am at doing it. And I think they will go quiet. I think the interest in them is waning. And indeed gone. I mean, I'm not particularly interested in whether they sell their house or not. I mean, I know that we will still have these stories about them. There will be magazines, the newspapers will still pick it up. But I don't think it's as relevant now as it was. So I think you'll see them disappear into, you know, a quiet life and for the good. That's what they always wanted. They wanted privacy. They can have it.
Yeah, they get privacy by being on the Oprah show. Once a month, by doing their own Netflix documentary. They want privacy, you know, like they don't want privacy. And they are narcissists, they are hogging the public light. I think Meghan's been very damaging for the royal family, just by taking Harry to America and that physical...
Well, he did,
severance.
I mean, look, she didn't take him, as it were. He went quite willingly.
willingly.
And he was telling her he didn't have enough. It was terrible because of my allowance. What, your 15 million? Yes, I had to spend that.
Yeah, and it kind of I think it highlighted that sense of entitlement and a separation from reality. And like I say, they go around the world in private jets and tell the rest of us to turn our heating off, and they should put sock in it.
Yeah, that's fair enough, isn't it? I hear you there. Well, lots of you have been getting in touch with your views on this one, and Leo says individuals are not institutions. They shouldn't be judged as such. Tara says the Queen has served the country with grace and dignity for 70 years. Absolutely. John says, I'm pretty fed up with them all, but worried about the constitutional implications of closing them down. Which republics can we now look to for guidance? Yeah, see, that is the worry, isn't it? If we get rid of them, same with the Boris thing, you get rid of it, what's going to be in its place? We've also had a poll up on Twitter today throughout the show asking, is the monarchy still an institution to be proud of? And the result is that 70% of you say yes, it is, which I'm quite pleased about that result as well. That's a good thing. And this one here, there was one on tweet, but I couldn't read that one there because it's too far away and I'm not wearing my glasses. Now, you're with me, Nana Akua, if you've just tuned in. Where have you been? This is GB News on TV and on digital radio. Still to come, would you accept an organ transplant from a farm animal if your life depended on it? A man from the US is the first successful recipient of a heart donation from a pig. I'll be finding out more about the procedure next. But first, let's get another weather update.
Hello again. After the cold and foggy start in places, it's turned into a fine winter's day once again. Dry for most, sunny spells, especially for England and Wales, cloudier for Scotland and Northern Ireland, and we'll see further fog forming overnight, particularly close to where this H is, the centre of the high pressure. Weather fronts, though, meanwhile, are still bringing thicker cloud to parts of Scotland especially, but also Northern Ireland and parts of northern England. Some drizzly outbreaks of rain in the far north and northwest. Otherwise, the country is dry overnight. Clear spells in the south will lead to widespread mist and fog, as well as low cloud. The worst of the visibility expected around central and eastern England through the Midlands, and as far north as, say, parts of North Yorkshire. So a grey and gloomy start to the day, some poor visibility out there. Take care on the roads if you are out and about first thing, especially central and eastern England. There'll be some sunshine, North Wales into northwest England, as well as parts of northeast Scotland. Otherwise, a good deal of cloud remains into the afternoon. We may even keep a few stubborn fog patches, and where that happens, it will stay on the cold side for parts of eastern England in particular. A few drizzly showers in the west, but some more persistent rain coming along into the far northwest as we end Saturday. This is a weather front, and although the rain on it will tend to ease away as it moves south across the country on Sunday night, as you can see, it does open the door to clearer skies, and so actually temperatures falling away in the north of Scotland, clearer spells as we start off Sunday. A bit more of a breeze elsewhere, perhaps less foggy as we begin Sunday across England and Wales. Still a lot of cloud cover, but as this front comes south, it acts as a sweeping brush. It clears away the cloud, and so skies readily brightening across Scotland, Northern Ireland, and then later across parts of northern England. Some decent sunshine coming through, although it will be blustery and on the cold side here with showers in the far north.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here.
Joe Biden walking out. Thank you very much for joining us. Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farrar, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 5 minutes to 5 o'clock. Now, this is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. Could we have seen a breakthrough in transplant surgery? A man in the US has become the first person in the world to get a heart transplant from a genetically modified pig. David Bennett was deemed ineligible for a human transplant and would have died if he didn't have the operation. The 57-year-old is thought to be recovering well. So how big a breakthrough is this operation, and could it become a common procedure here in the UK? I'm joined by Professor of Stem Cell Biology at the University of Nottingham, Chris Denning. Chris, welcome. This was the first time that this surgery has been done successfully, but it's been attempted before, though, hasn't it?
It has, and you're absolutely right with this. This is something that is not typically new. Some of these early transplants occurred from pigs into humans as early in the 60s and the 70s, but of course those organs were rejected straight away because of the difference in biology and genetics between pigs and humans.
So how have they managed to overcome that particular scenario? Because obviously there's rejection. We know that when an organ goes in, your body will usually reject it, and there's a plethora of drugs that people take to stop this. But how have they managed to manipulate that part of the process with animal health.
So you're absolutely right. One of the big differences between pigs and humans is that across the years and years of evolution, what's actually happened is one of the key genes that is active within pig cells has been lost in human cells. And what that means is that those pig cells are then recognized as being extremely foreign to humans. And so there's this massive immune response that initially gets triggered, and it's called hyperacute rejection. And within literally a matter of minutes, that pig organ can be reduced to this messy pulp. And so that's just the first wave. And so one of the things that these scientists will have done is to remove the function of that particular gene within the pig cells, and that gene is the complex name of alpha-galactosyl transferase. So that will have been removed. But then, just as you say, that when we have human-to-human transplants, there's a lot of effort that goes into matching the organ with the donor. And so all of that work will need to be done as well. So there will be a best match. But of course, that's very difficult to get perfect between pigs and humans. And then finally, in our own genetics, we have these relics of viruses called retroviruses. And pigs have exactly the same. But naturally, there are differences between the pig viruses and the human viruses. So there's a potential risk there for those different types of viruses to mix with each other. Just like you get with flu, influenza occurring, how you can get different strains of flu mixing together, and then you get a particularly nasty flu. So those kind of issues will have either been bred out of the pigs, or they would have used this technology known as gene editing to actually knock out the function of those genes. But it's a lot of work that they've done here.
Oh, God. And if the body rejects it even after that, is it something that would they then have to remove it and try again, or can they do something else? I mean, it seems like a real last chance saloon when you're going for a pig's heart.
Oh, completely. I mean, you're absolutely right with that, Nala, that if this fails, then you can imagine that it may well be quite a swift failure. I mean, they've got over the issues of hyperacute rejection, which would have happened in seconds or minutes. So that's a big advance in its own right. The fact that this human patient is doing quite well several days later is actually quite promising for that. But there are huge questions that still remain around this. So even with a human-to-human transplant, there are big concerns about how long that organ will last, whether it will be subject to other forms of chronic rejection. And then, of course, these individuals, they'll be under levels, like you said a minute ago, they have lots of chemicals pumped into their body to prevent that rejection occurring. Now, you can imagine that the levels required to prevent the rejection of a pig organ are going to be pretty high. And what kind of impact will that have on the patient in the longer term? And all of these are completely unknown questions because this has never been successful, even out beyond a few days before. So this is all completely uncharted territory.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Professor Chris Denning, thank you so much for joining us. He's a professor of stem cell biology at the University of Nottingham. Wow. Well, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on digital radio and on TV. More to come in the next hour. So good afternoon. It's just gone 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. Now, for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course, it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is Deputy Leader of the Reclaim Party, Martin Daubney, and former Conservative advisor, Claire Purcell. Still to come, each Friday at 5, we'll put the spotlight on a particular guest or a subject matter in my Friday Focus feature. Now, this week, we'll be discussing the decision by the government to suspend the rollout of smart motorways until at least 2025. I'll be joined by a woman whose partner died on the motorway and a police and crime commissioner who's been calling for smart motorway reform in Yorkshire. The Great British Debate this hour, MI5 has set a rare warning over an alleged Chinese agent infiltrating Parliament to interfere in UK politics. Here's what the Conservative MP Ian Duncan Smith had to say on the matter.
Say, as a member of parliament who's sanctioned by the Chinese government, as others, that this is a matter of grave concern.
So I'll be asking, how big a threat is China to Western society? And of course, I want to hear from you. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk, or why not send me a tweet at gbnews. But first, let's get your latest headlines.
Good afternoon, I'm Polly Middlehurst in the GB newsroom. The former Director General of the government's COVID task force, Kate Josephs, has apologised for holding leaving drinks in December 2020 when indoor socialising was banned. It comes after it emerged 2 parties were held the day before the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral in May. Downing Street apologised, saying it was deeply regrettable that they took place at a time of national mourning. Restrictions meant the Queen had to sit alone for her husband's funeral the following day. Virginia Giuffre says she is pleased a judge has ruled her civil sex case against the Duke of York can go ahead. Miss Giuffre says she wants to expose the truth. Prince Andrew denies all the allegations, and it comes after the Duke was stripped of his royal patronages and military titles. The royal commentator Jenny Bond told GB News that Andrew's Duke of York title might also be in doubt.
Development is that one of the MPs who represents York has said we don't want him to be Duke of York either. That is a taint on our city. One or two other voices in York are saying the same thing. So that's absolutely in the gift of the Queen. He was made the Duke of York on the day of his wedding. And there's been no word from the palace that they're considering stripping him of that as well. But the pressure will continue.
Jenny Bond. Well, GB News can confirm more than 550 migrants have crossed the English Channel in small boats in the first 2 weeks of this year. 4 boats with around 100 migrants have been intercepted so far today. It comes as the French authorities investigate the death of one migrant who drowned after his small boat got into difficulties earlier on this morning near Boulogne. An Australian court has ordered Novak Djokovic to be detained from 8 a.m. local time tomorrow. He will, however, be allowed to attend his lawyer's offices to prepare his case. It follows a government decision to revoke his visa for a second time, saying it was in the public interest. The unvaccinated tennis star previously won his court appeal against being deported. The first Grand Slam of the year starts on Monday. The government is to hold a review into how a Chinese agent was able to get so close to senior British politicians. It comes after MI5 warned yesterday the agent had been interfering in UK politics. Downing Street has said it's deeply concerning. China has denied the allegations, saying it has no need to buy influence in any foreign parliament. The Security Minister, Damien Hines, told GB News MI5 issued the alert to put a stop to the spies' activities.
It's the system at work, and these notices are one tool that the security service has at its disposal. But what we've seen yesterday is a disruption of this activity. I'm afraid that we're likely to see more of these in the future.
The Six Nations rugby tournament will now go ahead as planned as outdoor COVID restrictions are eased in Wales following a rapid decline in COVID cases there. Wales's First Minister set out his roadmap to lifting restrictions if the downward trend continues. GB News Wales correspondent Lily Hewitson has more.
This is a 4-stage plan which sees nightclubs reopen and crowds welcome back to sporting events here in Wales. Now, this starts tomorrow with the number of people who can attend an outdoor event rising from just 50 to 500. From the 21st of January, sports events will be able to welcome back crowds, and on the 28th, nightclubs will be able to reopen.
Lily Hewitson. Now, the murder of a 23-year-old teacher, Aisling Murphy, has united the nation in solidarity, the Irish Premier has said. Micheál Martin says no stone will be left unturned in bringing the person responsible to justice. Flowers have been left in tribute to the young teacher who was found dead on Wednesday after going for a run on the banks of the Grand Canal in Tullamore, County Offaly. Ireland's Deputy Premier, Leo Varadkar, says the country is reeling.
Does cause us to think a little bit more about gender-based violence, and this is something that men and women alike need to combat together. And I think for men in particular, we need to make sure that we understand and that we teach our boys that violence against women is never justified.
Leah Varadkar. This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now more from Nana Akua.
Good afternoon. If you've just joined me, welcome. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV and on digital radio. Right, let's start this hour with our Friday focus. And this week, we're returning to one of the biggest issues in the UK in transport, smart motorways. Now, after years of warnings from campaigners over safety concerns, the government announced this week that they will pause the construction until 2025, whilst their safety is looked at. Now, it's after a recommendation by the Commons Transport Select Committee. Smart motorways use the hard shoulder as a permanent live traffic lane to increase capacity. But critics say that it has contributed to road deaths. And I'm joined now by Claire Mercer, whose husband Jason was tragically killed on a smart motorway. She's now a spokesperson at the Smart Motorways Kill campaign. Claire, first of all, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. What are your thoughts on this news? 2025, they're going to pause until then.
Well, it's half of what they could have done. They could have done something much easier and much more effective. And that's before you even look at the small print involved, because they're not pausing the rollout till 2025. They're pausing the rollout of a few that are possibly convenient to them to pause. And you know, they're going to already set back the clock. The clock has already been running for 2 years on the 5-year calendar that they're saying. So we've got some schemes paused for some time around 3 years. So the amount of small print just negates anything being worthwhile anyway, but also it would have been far quicker and far more effective and completely free to just flick the switch over the first lane and turn the first lane off while they investigate them for about the 25th time in just the 2.5 years I've been campaigning.
I mean, this smacks to me like trying to make you forget about the fact that we are still going to have to carry on driving on those ones that exist until 2025. So it's just, it doesn't really add up for me. No. What is it that they are looking for to see if these smart motorways are dangerous and cause death? It's quite clear.
Well, apparently they're analysing the safety data now. 15 years after they first brought them in. Why are we analysing the safety data now after 60 plus people have been killed solely by smart motorways? Surely you analyse the safety data for decades before you do something, not decades after you do it. And then just saying that they want 5 years worth of 5 years full safety data on the new ones. Why do we need it on the new ones? Why is it critical on the new ones, but not on the ones that are already open and potentially killing people? I don't understand that.
Because in the meantime, we're still driving on those things. And I'd implore anybody who's listening to the programme now to actually, when you are on a road or somewhere, look and see whether you're on a smart motorway. Because most people don't even look until you actually need to look when there's an issue. And then you could find yourself on one of those, which I think is frightening. Do you think that you've talked about hard shoulders? Do you think reinstating them would really make the motorways safer? They say that a lot of people get killed on the hard shoulders in any case.
Yes, well, a motorway is an incredibly dangerous environment, so don't make it even more dangerous. And now they're using this absolutely unbelievable excuse that reinstating the hard shoulder might cause casualties. I just can't even begin to get to the bottom of that. The most I've had is a half answer saying that because it would reduce capacity, so therefore force motorists onto A roads. But it's not reducing capacity. It's reinstating the capacity to what it was before. And that was before 2 pandemics and our commitment to climate care, because we've known since I was at school that we need to actually think about things in a more efficient, effective and climate conscious manner. And I'm not an eco warrior, but why are we having COP26 literally promising the world and then expanding the entire country's motorway? I mean, that didn't make sense before a pandemic, but now we've got even more people working at home. They're just flanneling. They're telling that campaign embody that campaign embody that, and that campaign embody that, and they don't intend to stick to any of it.
Nana Sinclair, for the time that I've been, because I'm passionate about, I think they're terrible. I can't see why anyone in their right mind would think that they're a good idea. But this must have been quite tough on you. What has this done to you? Because you've been campaigning for this, well, ever since the death of your husband.
Mm-hmm. 2 nervous breakdowns. It's obviously the death of a loved one just smashes your life to pieces, and PTSD, nervous breakdown, whatever you want to call it. But I had a nervous breakdown initially, but then I had a nervous breakdown about 4 months ago because I'm just exhausted. I shouldn't have to be doing this, and I shouldn't have to be harassing, effectively, that's how I feel about it, other bereaved families to stand with me. So it's not just my face that you see on every single news programme, but they all want to stand with me. But it is absolutely exhausting. And, you know, arranging the protest that we had recently and the attention that got the following day. And I had another nervous breakdown because grief, and you can't get over it. At some point you have to accept that you're going to have to start again. It's not a linear journey, and it doesn't just go better. It goes up and down. But they are forcing me to fight this while trying to put my life back together.
Claire, thank you so much for talking to us about that. I'm behind you on this 100%. I think they're ridiculous, and I don't want to see any more smart motorways. Thank you so much. That's Claire Mercer. She's the spokesperson at the Smart Motorways Kill campaign. Her husband, Jason Mercer, was killed on a smart motorway. Now, the Police and Crime Commissioner for South Yorkshire, Dr. Alan Billings, has also been campaigning for smart motorway reform. Alan, you've heard the toll that it's taken on Claire. I mean, it's astounding that anyone would think these motorways are safe. But why are you so passionate about change to the smart motorways?
Well, I live just down the road from Claire in South Yorkshire. She's in Rotherham. I live in Sheffield. I was actually travelling on this stretch of the M1 today, the smart motorway, just 16 miles of it in South Yorkshire. But we've had 3 fatalities on that since 2018. And it's not just the fatalities, it's also the near misses. It's very frightening if somebody stops in a live lane in front of you and you're travelling behind them. It's very frightening for you if your vehicle stops. And we've had 360 vehicles stopping in that live lane in the last year for which I saw figures, which was 2020. 360 breakdowns in the live lane, which 288 of which required the police to attend. Now, that's quite serious. Any one of those could have been a really, really serious incident with fatalities. So for all sorts of reasons, I am opposed to them. I just cannot get my head round why anybody would think that a breakdown, a vehicle stopping in a live lane, i.e. you've got traffic coming at you, behind you, 60 miles an hour, why they think that there's anything safe about that. It's just inherently dangerous.
I don't understand how they can continue with this argument, but they are. They're saying that these will be safer and they give more people space to drive and overtake, that sort of thing. From a police and emergency service point of view, don't they help when accidents do happen by keeping the traffic moving?
Well, of course, if there's an incident, a collision, which requires all the lanes to be stopped, then the emergency vehicles have got no way of getting to the incident because, as you realise, on a conventional motorway, the emergency service vehicles just go up the hard shoulder. But if you have a total stoppage of all the lanes on a smart motorway, then the emergency vehicles, police, ambulance, fire, crucially, have to negotiate through standing traffic. So that's another reason for not having these kinds of motorway. I do believe the reason that they did it in the first place was, yes, to increase capacity, have an extra lane, but to do it cheaply, not to have to put another hard shoulder in. And because we have the gantries over the roads, which regulates speed, that's why they're safe. It's not because they haven't got a hard shoulder. If taking a hard shoulder away just made the roads safer, you take the hard shoulders away on motorways all over the country. That's ridiculous. The reason that they have good safety record or better safety records, and none of them are good, better safety records than conventional motorways, is because we've got the gantries over that regulate speed on those stretches of motorway. But if you think about it, if you do stop in a live lane running motorway, on that part of the motorway where you're stopping in a live lane. That just is so dangerous. What do you do? Where do you go?
Well,
if you step out of your vehicle, you step into a live lane on the one side, there's no hard shoulder. On the other side, you've got vehicles coming up behind you. And I've had HGV vehicle drivers get in touch with me to say that they're pretty terrified because they can't always tell that a vehicle in front of them is slowing and then stopping. They don't always realise until quite late. And then they've got to make a very quick decision with a huge lorry that they're driving to get into a live lane at the side of them in order to avoid collision. And one HGV driver told me that the worst position of all is to be not that lorry driver that has the vehicle stop in front of them, but to be the lorry driver behind the lorry that sees what's happening, because you're completely unsighted if you're in that position.
I mean, it really is. I beg his belief that these things are supposedly safe at all. Listen, Dr. Alan Billings, thank you so much for joining us and do your thoughts. He's the Police and Crime Commissioner for South Yorkshire. Now, Transport Secretary Grant Shapps sent us this statement. Whilst our initial data shows that smart motorways are among the safest roads in the UK, it's crucial that we go further to ensure people feel safer using them. Pausing schemes yet to start construction and making multi-million-pound improvements to existing schemes will give drivers confidence and provide the data we need to inform our next step. For goodness sake, just scrap them. It's quite obvious. You're with me, Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV and digital radio. Still to come, it's the Great British Debate. MI5 has sent a rare warning over an alleged Chinese agent infiltrating Parliament to interfere in UK politics. So I'm asking, how big a threat is China to Western security? But first, it's the weather.
Hello again. After the cold and foggy start in places, it's turned into a fine winter's day once again. Dry for most, sunny spells, especially for England and Wales, cloudier for Scotland and Northern Ireland, and we'll see further fog forming overnight, particularly close to where this H is, the centre of the high pressure. Weather fronts, though, meanwhile, are still bringing thicker cloud to parts of Scotland especially, but also Northern Ireland and parts of northern England. Some drizzly outbreaks of rain in the far north and northwest. Otherwise, the country is dry overnight. Clear spells in the south will lead to widespread mist and fog, as well as low cloud. The worst of the visibility expected around central and eastern England through the Midlands, and as far north as, say, parts of North Yorkshire. So a grey and gloomy start to the day, some poor visibility out there. Take care on the roads if you are out and about first thing, especially central and eastern England. There'll be some sunshine, North Wales into northwest England, as well as parts of northeast Scotland. Otherwise, a good deal of cloud remains into the afternoon. We may even keep a few stubborn fog patches, and where that happens, it will stay on the cold side for parts of eastern England in particular. A few drizzly showers in the west, but some more persistent rain coming along into the far northwest as we end Saturday. This is a weather front, and although the rain on it will tend to ease away as it moves south across the country on Sunday night, as you can see, it does open the door to clearer skies, and so actually temperatures falling away in the north of Scotland, clearer spells as we start off Sunday. A bit more of a breeze elsewhere, perhaps less foggy as we begin Sunday across England and Wales. Still a lot of cloud cover, but as this front comes south, it acts as a sweeping brush. It clears away the cloud, and so skies readily brightening across Scotland, Northern Ireland, and then later across parts of northern England. Some decent sunshine coming through, although it will be blustery and on the cold side here with showers in the far north.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farrar, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
It's fast approaching 23 minutes after 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. Right, it's time for our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, how big a threat is China to Western security? MI5 has issued a warning about Christine Lee, the owner of a law firm with links to UK politicians and the Chinese Communist Party. The initial security agency alleges she may aspire to further the Chinese Communist Party's agenda. So with regular talk of the security issues posed by China, I want to find out just how much a threat the country really is. So let's speak to GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White. So Mark, just explain this story to us. What has MI5 said? What is the situation?
Well, they've taken a very unusual step, obviously, of issuing this alert to parliamentary authorities, which was then disseminated to members of parliament and to peers. It's clearly alarmed them. The government takes it very seriously. The security services do as well. What we're talking about here, it's not the traditional idea of what a spy might do in stealing secrets. This is what they call the espionage within the grey area. This is the activities that are designed to influence and to also sort of I've forgotten that word now. I do apologise.
Does it begin with a C? Circumnavigate, do you mean? Get round the sort of...
No, subvert. That's it. I do apologise.
Yeah, sort of get round the same
thing. Been a long day. To subvert the democratic process. And this particular woman, Christine Lee, had been associating with members of Parliament for some considerable time. And in that time had also offered money, donations to political...
So she had offered these things to political...
Yeah, so donations to aspiring politicians and to also seasoned politicians. One politician who has been named as receiving the bulk of money that seems to have come from this woman, £700,000 that she has paid out in recent years. About 420,000 of that went to the veteran Labour MP, Barry Gardner.
See, now, again, his name pops up again.
Yeah.
You see, this is the thing. We're talking Boris and everything, but this is going on as well. So his name has cropped up in this, some £700,000. And what is it that she promised him, or that why did she offer this money? Or
well, he says that she didn't promise anything, that this was a friendly relationship, that she was there doing what a number of people do in terms of helping out politicians and with funding and help in terms of trying to fund researchers in their office and the like. He said that everything was above board and that he was initially a bit concerned, that he had then liaised with MI5 to tell them that clearly this woman, who seemed genuine enough but had connections with Chinese companies, was offering him money to help fund researchers in his office. He said he effectively got the all clear from MI5 a few years back, that they didn't see a problem there. And over the course of that time, he took £420,000 for his office from this woman. You've got to ask, I guess, if you had these initial concerns to the point where you were raising it with MI5, does that not set alarm bells ringing in your head that perhaps it wasn't the best idea to then take money from this woman?
So what is it that you think the Chinese government or whoever this woman is working for would want? Why would they wouldn't need anything from us in this way. They can get in through all their systems and software and everything else like that. They're way more intelligent in their approach to any form of espionage. Why would this be?
But this is what the Chinese are doing. The Russians are doing it as well. And it's multifaceted, yes. They are getting in traditional sort of hacking senses into computers. They're stealing intellectual secrets. They're investing in companies and countries, all to buy influence. But at the same time, what they're doing is they are making and forging relationships with politicians and those involved in key decision-making issues. So Barry Gardiner, for instance, was involved in talking about energy policy for the Labour Party. He denied, for instance, that he was a cheerleader for Hinkley Point, the nuclear power station which China has been involved in. But you can see where the potential conflicts of interest lie with these Chinese operatives who are out there trying to get this influence, try to subvert, which is the word I'll never forget now for the rest of my life, however short that probably will be.
Well, I'm going to subvert you off now. You better go. No, thank you very much.
I'm going for a drink.
That's really it's fascinating stuff, really. I mean, I listen and I think, why would anybody want to be involved in this sort of thing? It sounds very icky, especially with Barry Gardiner getting involved in this way, but still, we'll discuss that and loads more. I'm also joined now by Sir Mark Lyle Grant. He's a former UK ambassador to the UN and National Security Advisor. So, Mark, what was your reaction to this story?
Well, I wasn't unduly surprised, Nana, to be honest, because we know that both the Russians and the Chinese have been very active in trying to subvert, to use the Mark's word, our political processes and to influence politicians as well as the executive. And I know that from time to time, the intelligence agencies have approached individual members of parliament to warn them that people that they are in contact with are in fact foreign agents of interest to the intelligence services. And I think that's what would have happened in this particular case. It wouldn't have been that Barry Gardiner had gone to MI5. It would have been that MI5 would have gone to Barry Gardiner to say, do you realize that this woman, Christine Lee, is closely associated with the Chinese government?
In your view, how much of a threat does China actually pose to Western security?
Well, the bigger threat is still Russia. Russia poses a military threat in the way that China doesn't. We see what Russia is threatening to do in eastern Ukraine, has already done in eastern Ukraine, and Russia is daily testing our air and sea defences. It's also launching cyber attacks, assassination attempts, as we've seen on and successful sometimes on British streets, misinformation campaigns, interference in our elections, in our referenda, the Scottish referendum, the EU referendum, all of those Russia was involved in. China is a longer term threat. They are using other methods. Yes, they are still hacking computers, stealing industrial secrets, etc., but they're using more soft power than the Russians, looking to fund universities. A lot of universities are now taking money from China to set up sort of China professorships, all of which is designed, as is the influence of Parliament, to suppress debate about human rights abuses in China, about what China's doing in Hong Kong and the South China Sea. So they're sort of buying influence or wanting to buy influence to moderate views of what the Chinese government are doing.
And your thoughts then on what you think the current sort of government's handling of China is? Do you think they're handling things in the right way? Or what would you suggest, and how would you suggest they should be handling them?
Well, I think both in the case of Russia and China, the government has taken a deliberate policy to publicize events more now. When there have been spies who are being caught, or this sort of peddling influence by Christine Lee. And they're doing this for a number of reasons. One is it's a way of neutralising the individual, because Christine Lee no longer will have any influence with MPs. Everyone will be very wary of her in the future. But also it's a wake-up call for members of Parliament, whom the intelligence services often think can be rather naive about what foreign governments are doing and the influence that they're trying to exert. So it will be able to do that. But I know that the government is also considering tightening the law. Because what has happened is that what Christine Lee has been doing is not actually illegal. Priti Patel has said it fell below the criminal threshold, and therefore she can't actually be prosecuted. She could be deported if the government decided that she posed a direct threat to British national security. As a foreign national, she could be sent back to China. But she can't be prosecuted because she hasn't done anything illegal. So one option that the government is looking at is to introduce new legislation which would make this form of influence operations in Parliament, illegal. It won't be easy to draft that legislation, but that's what their intention is.
It sounds like it would be very difficult to draft that. Thank you very much. That's Sir Mark Grant. He's the former UK ambassador to the UN and National Security Advisor. Let's have a quick look at what you've been saying. I'm asking how big a threat is China to Western security. Charlie says people are kidding themselves if they think this is the worst of it. Chinese money is buying influence in universities, the newspapers, UK corporations, everywhere. The only surprise is that it's taken this long to come to light. Richie says China is a much bigger threat than a few garden parties at number 10. I'm glad somebody said it. Simon says a very big threat, especially now the Chinese army is growing faster than America's. Keep your thoughts coming. You're watching me, Nana Akua, on GB News and TV, on digital radio. After the break, we'll continue our Great British Debate this hour. I'll be speaking to former Liberal Democrat leader Vince Cable, and you'll hear the thoughts of my panel. I'm joined by Deputy Leader of the Reclaim Party, Martin Daubney, and former Conservative advisor Claire Purcell. I'm asking how big a threat is China to Western security? But first, it's your latest news headlines.
I'm Polly Middlehurst on GB News, your top stories. The former Director-General of the government's COVID task force, Kate Josephs, has apologised for holding a leaving drinks in December 2020 when indoor socialising was banned. It comes after it emerged two parties were held the day before the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral in May. Downing Street apologised, saying it was deeply regrettable that they took place at a time of national mourning. Restrictions at the time meant the Queen had to sit alone for her husband's funeral the following day. An Australian court has ordered Novak Djokovic to be detained from 8 a.m. local time tomorrow. He will, however, be allowed to attend his lawyer's offices. It follows a government decision to revoke his visa for a second time, saying it was in the public interest. Virginia Giuffre has welcomed a US judge's decision to allow her civil sex abuse case against the Duke of York to go ahead. Ms Giuffre says she wants to expose the truth. Prince Andrew denies all the allegations. It comes as the Duke was stripped of his royal patronages and military titles. And GB News can confirm more than 550 migrants have crossed the English Channel in small boats in the first 2 weeks of this year. 4 boats with around 100 migrants have been intercepted so far today. That comes as French authorities investigate the death of one migrant who drowned after his small boat got into difficulties early this morning near Boulogne. 25 charities have written to the Prime Minister calling for urgent action to tackle the energy bill crisis. Charities including Save the Children and Age UK warn emergency funding is now needed. It comes as fuel poverty looks likely to increase from 4 to 6 million households. On TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. This is GB News. Now more from Nana Akua.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farrar, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
It's fast approaching 38 minutes after 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV and on digital radio. Let's go back to our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, how big a threat is China to Western security? MI5 has warned that a woman with links to the UK politicians could aspire to further the Chinese Communist Party agenda. Before I hear the thoughts of my panel, let's speak to Sir Vince Cable, the former leader of the Liberal Democrats. He's also recently authored a book all about this topic called The Chinese Conundrum. I'm actually reading it now. So, Vince, were you surprised when you heard the Christine Lee story?
Yes, I mean, I never heard of Christine Lee before. And clearly when MI5 sound a warning, we have to take that seriously. But it doesn't surprise me in a wider sense because MPs spend a lot of their time, those who are interested in foreign affairs, in dealing with governments in other countries. There are things like the Friends of India, Friends of Pakistan, Friends of Palestinians, Friend of Israel, and they have close links with parliamentarians and with governments in those countries, all party groups who are developing two-way relationships. And, you know, you would expect MPs to be involved with people from those countries and to learn from them. Of course, some of them sometimes have subversive objectives, and that appears to be the case here.
So, in your view, then, what are the main ways that China is supposedly seeking to infiltrate the UK?
Well, there's a mixture of threats and opportunities where China's concerned, and indeed many other countries. The opportunities are very clear. I mean, large numbers of our companies do extremely good business with China. A lot of jobs are involved, a lot of trade's involved. But clearly, it's a country with a very different system. Different approach to human rights, which we don't accept. And clearly we have to be careful. I mean, you mentioned in one of your earlier interviews that there are, Chinese donors giving money to British universities, but and indeed they have to be careful to maintain their independence, but there's no reason why they shouldn't accept money, providing they're clear about managing it. But, there are donations from Saudis, other Middle Eastern sources, and they have a political agenda, and indeed in many countries. It's a question of taking good advantage of the opportunities, which are very real. British universities do very well out of China in terms of students and research support, and you've got to manage it.
Because some of those things aren't really bad things. I mean, to have a lot of Chinese students in universities, they help to fund the universities and so on and so forth. That's not really a bad thing. Do you think we need to be adversarial or more conciliatory towards China?
I think we have to be hard-headed and engage. I don't think being conciliatory, but equally hostile neither. I mean, if the Chinese were trying to, influence British politics, they're not making a very good job of it. I mean, if you ever listen to any British parliamentary exchanges on China, they're almost unremittingly hostile. I mean, nobody is actually putting a more balanced point of view. So, yeah, I mean, it is a complex and difficult relationship because, in some respects, we need to work very closely with the Chinese, particularly on commercial and economic issues. We need to work with them on international cooperative issues, global warming, things of that kind. But at the same time, it is adversarial in some respects, and we have to try and manage that complex juggling.
Interesting stuff. Listen, Vince, thank you so much for talking to us about that. That's Sir Vince Cable. He's the former leader of the Liberal Democrats and also author of the book, The Chinese Conundrum. I'm actually in the middle of that book, Vince. It's good. Right, let's see what my panel make of this. I'm with Deputy Leader of the Reclaim Party, Martin Daubeny, and former Conservative advisor, Claire Purcell. I'm going to start with you, Claire. How concerning is this warning from MI5?
Well, I think it's really concerning. The security services don't normally flag up these things so publicly. So to have an email that goes to the Speaker of the House of Commons and then distributed to members of Parliament and members of the House of Peers, this is enormous. And it just shows that they are concerned enough to make this public. Now we've seen it on pretty much every news broadcast and it's online. They wouldn't have done this if there was no threat at all. So we are left now wondering quite how much this woman has influence and what is her end game. I don't see what she is hoping to achieve by going to a very nice politician, but Barry Gardiner is not really quite up there in security circles. So the whole thing is a little bizarre.
It does seem very odd. And what is it, 700 grand or whatever it was accepted for? I'm sorry, but that sounds a bit... I'm more concerned about that than a party at 10 Downing Street. What do you...
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a few things to talk about here. First of all, there's a lot of people who are very angry about the alleged, as it turned out, fake involvement of Russian money in Brexit. They're suddenly saying today, well, there's nothing to see here. There's nothing to see here about 700 grand going to a Labour MP. It's like, well, there is something to see.
There's a lot to see,
and it's a deep concern. Secondly, Vince Cable there saying that we're working with China on global warming. It's the guy on drugs.
No, don't say that. No.
Seriously.
Vince isn't here to defend himself. I won't have you say that about him.
Seriously, the Chinese didn't turn up to COP26. They're the biggest polluter on the planet. They treat this entire thing with absolute disdain. And moreover, they're buying...
But just to bring you back to COP, some would say that they were right not to come and that they were prepared to go online and talk to us instead of taking a private jet to get there. So I'm not so...
No, they abjectly refuse to sign up to any of the global mandates on net zero targets. And I think actually that's not a bad thing. It's a separate point. Yeah. But they are influencing globally. They're hoovering up African democracy. They're enslaving those economies with loans. They're taking their natural resource.
But those economies have a little bit to be responsible for themselves in a way. I mean, yes, I don't agree with them being enslaved by China in that respect, but they're signing up to it.
Yeah, because they have great resource under their soil, which the world needs, particularly battery elements, which we'll be entirely dependent on China for those. And so it buys them a get-out-jail card in terms of the political ramifications of these kind of things. We can't kick China out because we need what they give us. And that's what China is so clever at. They are the most totalitarian, insidious, imperialistic country on the planet. Well, and I think we need to be very, very careful.
But don't we have to, Martin, don't we need to start looking into ourselves? You can say that about China, and I'm not saying that I don't agree with you in that respect, but I'm saying... We sold out our manufacturing base. We have sold out to the prospect of cheap. We are hooked on this cheap things, cheap goods, phones, gadgets, which China provide us, which we have not invested in our own in our own future in this country. So why we can't complain if China grab onto the back of that?
No, and I would completely agree that this globalism has been terrible for British manufacturing. We sold our manufacturing industry down the river, cheap Chinese labour. We cannot compete. I totally agree with that. But now that the Chinese controls in much more insidious ways, and I think Barry Gardiner seems an unlikely target I mean, he's hardly a chess player, is he?
Well, I don't know. I mean, he was the one on the Black Lives Matter protest, sort of defying the rules and doing that.
But I'm not convinced that China would have too much to gain from Barry's views on Black Lives Matter. I think it is concerning 700,000 or 400,000, whichever way you look at it.
Still a lot of money.
To staff your office, that's quite a lot of money. And you do wonder, why did he think he was getting that? And what was he going to get for it? And what is Christine Lee gaining from giving a Labour member that much money to staff his office? Now, I appreciate that her son was then employed. You know, to put some transparency on that, apparently the person in question didn't know what his mother was doing. Whether you believe that or not, it remains to be seen, but that's been the question. But I do think it also brings about the question as, how do you get out of this? And I think that there is an awful lot to do with electoral reform that needs to happen. There are so many loopholes in the way financing can come into political parties and indeed institutions.
Vince was sort of saying, wasn't he, that it's not unusual for that to happen.
Absolutely.
And to me, well, it might not be unusual, but that sounds a little bit unacceptable to me.
Well, it is, but unfortunately, this money that comes in through foreign tax havens and untraceable shell companies and is filtered through, therefore just makes it invisible. So electoral reform loopholes need to be closed, and that's what Parliament should now be looking at.
I think there needs to be more transparency. I'm just going to have a look at this, because this show is obviously nothing without you and your views, and let's welcome one of our great British voices. It's your opportunity to be on the show and tell us what you really think about the topics we're discussing. Bishop Dr. Desmond Jaddo is a community campaigner from Birmingham. Welcome to the programme, Desmond. Do you think China is a threat to the West?
I think China's an actual threat to the political and economic stability of not just the West, but many countries. I mean, my experience in the Caribbean and also parts of Africa is that their influence is immense upon governments at the cost of actual people themselves and people who are living in poverty.
It is worrying, isn't it? And what do you think their end game is on this one, then?
Well, I always say this: the man who plays the piper calls the tune. And the facts are, at the end of the day, with all the sleaze going on at Parliament at the moment, this is quite concerning that £420,000 has been given to a Labour MP. I mean, a Labour MP's, any MP's salary is about £80,000 a year. That's 5 times their salary. So clearly, my concern is, what were they expecting in return for that money at the cost of the British public? And remember, where does the power lie? Does it lie with China? Is it moving towards China and a global political and social empire? Or does it lie with the British people? And that's the key question we've got to ask.
It's a big question. Thank you so much, Bishop Dr. Desmond Jaddo, for joining us. He's a community campaigner and one of our new GB voices. Well, see, so he's kind of on the same one with us, really. Yeah. And the thing is, we are talking about the governments being more transparent, and we are looking at complaining about parties, but these things, these other, to me, bigger things are happening. And this time, this woman is a Labour MP.
Absolutely, yeah. And one thing we must talk about is the effect of China on buying out the World Health Organization. When it was at the start, this leaked from a lab in Wuhan, and that was silenced. They bought off the Director General in the way FIFA have been bought off in football, and they silenced and suppressed that. Yeah. China is a huge, huge threat to the globe, not in terms of its economics, but its health, and it's a serious, serious issue.
To be fair, I'm actually a little bit worried about the way it does appear to be buying up parts of the world, but then owning so much. I mean, if you look at a lateral flow test, I mean, they're all made in China. We had the pandemic. It seemed that they were the only profiteers of the virus. I mean, every economy was shutting down, whilst theirs, maybe in closing, it was extremely active, giving us all the test kits, the lateral flow things, and they thrived.
But also, doesn't that point to what we should be doing as individuals? Because we all rely upon mobile phones, laptops, that kind of thing. And we want everything quickly and cheaply, and they will supply that. We need to get our suppliers in this country, our manufacturing, back up on track so that we are not reliant upon boats coming across from China with all the goods that we require.
I don't know why we're not doing it. I don't know why we're not, setting up and investing in our own businesses and our own economy. It makes no sense to me. And lots of you have also been getting in touch with your thoughts. And Sue says, personally, I think China is a huge threat to our security. The economics is the biggest worry, as they can always undercut us worse on trade. Pete says, I think we need to be careful with talking tough on China. They're a big power and we'd be better served by working with them rather than against them. Steve says China is trying to infiltrate all parts of society. Sarah says, I think we should impose a trade embargo on all products and shipments from China. We need to stop the Communist Party from buying any more into Western businesses. Tim says, I really don't think China's the biggest problem given the issues we have with our Prime Minister at the moment. See, Tim thinks that that's China's, the issues we've got with our Prime Minister are actually bigger than China.
That's ridiculous. I mean, as you said quite correctly, a golden party pales in comparison to what China did with Wuhan and the WHO and this ongoing situation. It gives the illusion that British democracy is for sale. And that has a value in China, which says that over there, we're in control of them, the tendrils run deep. And the amount of money is chump change for China.
Oh, of course it is.
It really is.
Well, it is. And, and I think that's unfortunate that you've got the debate about garden parties because it makes us look even weaker.
Yeah. Well, it does. They must be laughing at us because in their country, that would never get out. And if it did, you probably wouldn't make it out. Now, it's time for our quick-fire debates. It's the part of the show where we discuss some of the other topics hitting the headlines. I've got my trusty buzzer with me. Yes. So when I press it, my panel have to stop talking, be quiet. So let's get started. Let's start with this one. It's Microsoft. They've introduced a political correctness tool to help users make their writing more inclusive. The Word feature, which is also on some of the Microsoft web-based applications, will offer tips to users by highlighting phrases or words that might cause offence. Martin Daubney, leader of the Reclaim Party, and Claire Purcell, former Conservative advisor, they're here. What do you make to this useful tool?
Absolutely ridiculous. As if Bill Gates isn't controlling enough of the world at the moment. He wants to also control the words we're allowed to use. Bill, no, get lost. This thing has no use at all. Free speech is the cornerstone of a free democracy. Bill Gates has no place in that.
No.
I'm old enough to remember the little paperclip that came with Microsoft Office, which came up with handy solutions. But you can turn that off in settings, and I suggest that Bill Gates has put that in the back door, and I would go and turn it off immediately, so I won't be told if my words are inclusive or not. Well, he doesn't know what I'm trying to write at the time.
You might be sending a dodgy email. Probably save it from yourself. That's what I'm thinking. Right, so next one. A man's been acquitted of assaulting members of cabin crew on a plane journey. The man who took 2 Ambien sleeping tablets, along with 3 glasses of wine and 2 travel-sized bottles of Baileys, told staff that he wanted to see his friends. They said it wouldn't be possible as he was 38,000 feet in the air. Martin and Claire, do you think alcohol should be banned on airplanes?
No, I don't. I think it's a personal choice whether you drink, and it is entirely down to the cabin crew to decide if you've had enough. If you're being a pain, they can stop selling it to you. And I think that taking sleeping pills should be one thing, and that should just make you go to sleep. You don't need to carry on drinking. And that was quite a substantial amount of money.
Martin?
I think with all the lateral flow tests and how hard it is to get on a plane now, we should drink more. I think, if anything...
Yeah, I don't think we should... Why should we all suffer because some stupid people can't control themselves? Right, how about this one then? Ed Sheeran has submitted plans to build a burial chamber. It's going to be under the floor of the new boat-shaped church, which is being built in the grounds of his estate known as Sheeranville. Martin and Claire, have you given thought into where you want to be laid to rest? We'll start with Claire. So sad.
It's very sombre. I don't want to be buried. I don't like that idea. It's a cremation and scattered across the county of Kent, just so that I can be everywhere at all times and see what is going on, because I do believe that I will still be around after I've gone.
I like that. Martin?
I'm going to steal a line from my dad, who's watching again. Dad, love you. He said, you
did that last time, then you said something very bad, so I've got to watch out.
Did I? Sorry, yeah. my dad says, when I go, put me in a wheelie bin, and I say the same. As cheap as possible, save the money for the kids, don't waste money on expensive funerals, just throw me in the Trent.
Really? In a wheelie bin?
Yeah, why not?
Well, it's not biodegradable, isn't it? You think you're doing a favour, you need to go in a little wooden one.
Reuse the bin.
So you'd have and you'd just be like buried in the wheelie bin?
In the Trent, be done with it.
Oh, that's...
Save money.
Yeah, but I do think that there is merit in not having a permanent memorial, because I don't want my child to feel guilty that he hasn't been to lay flowers or just, you know, remember
just
me.
too sad. It's doing it on its own now. That's a bit creepy. Well, listen, I've got to say thank you so much to my incredible panel. Weren't they great? Deputy Leader of the Reclaim Party, Martin Daubney, and former Conservative advisor, Claire Pearsall. Listen, and also thank you so much to you for watching. I'll be back tomorrow afternoon at 4. Coming up next, it's Dubes and Co, but first, it's time for the weather.
Hello again. After the cold and foggy start in places, it's turned into a fine winter's day once again. Dry for most, sunny spells, especially for England and Wales, cloudier for Scotland and Northern Ireland, and we'll see further fog forming overnight, particularly close to where this H is, the centre of the high pressure. Weather fronts, though, meanwhile, are still bringing thicker cloud to parts of Scotland especially, but also Northern Ireland and parts of northern England. Some drizzly outbreaks of rain in the far north and northwest. Otherwise, the country is dry overnight. Clear spells in the south will lead to widespread mist and fog, as well as low cloud. The worst of the visibility expected around central and eastern England through the Midlands, and as far north as, say, parts of North Yorkshire. So a grey and gloomy start to the day, some poor visibility out there. Take care on the roads if you are out and about first thing, especially central and eastern England. There'll be some sunshine, North Wales into northwest England, as well as parts of northeast Scotland. Otherwise, a good deal of cloud remains into the afternoon. We may even keep a few stubborn fog patches, and where that happens, it will stay on the cold side for parts of eastern England in particular. A few drizzly showers in the west, but some more persistent rain coming along into the far northwest as we end Saturday. This is a weather front, and although the rain on it will tend to ease away as it moves south across the country on Sunday night, as you can see, it does open the door to clearer skies, and so actually temperatures falling away in the north of Scotland, clearer spells as we start off Sunday. A bit more of a breeze elsewhere, perhaps less foggy as we begin Sunday across England and Wales. Still a lot of cloud cover, but as this front comes south, it acts as a sweeping brush. It clears away the cloud, and so skies readily brightening across Scotland, Northern Ireland, and then later across parts